Hi everyone, welcome back to Your Favorite Black Lobbyist. I'm Alexis, and today I have a special guest. I want to introduce Pastor Morrison from Shaw Temple AME Zion Church in Smyrna, Georgia, my personal home church. I'm so excited to have the conversation today, and we're going to kind of get into the conversation of intersecting faith and policy and how values brings upon action. So let's get into it. Well, hi. Thank you so much for coming on today's episode. I've been actually wanting to get you on because I really want to have this conversation just about how faith and policy is kind of just intersecting, especially in today's time. I mean, I of course attend church almost every Sunday. I sing in the choir, and so I know when I first came back to Shaw Temple, because I was a part of Shaw Temple when I was a lot younger with a previous pastor, and so when you came on after COVID or around COVID, and I came back to the church. And I noticed the conversations you were actually bringing in policy. You brought in elected officials, and I'm like, okay, like, what do you know about them? Like, how do you know these people? And so I really appreciated that because I not only are you bringing the conversation to the church and actually kind of bridging that gap of community of what's going on and getting people out there to vote and knowing what's going on, because a lot of people don't know, right? And so I just really want to get into the conversation of, share a little bit about your story and how you started out, of how you got into not only just ministry, but how advocacy became a part of your calling.
Yes. Well, thank you for having me on
Yes.
today. Sometimes you, as a pastor, you see people in the congregation on Sunday. You never know really what they're doing. You're doing a whole
Yeah.
lot. This is wonderful, wonderful. I began ministry very early. In fact, I felt a calling to preach at 10 years old. So and started ministry at 12 and started pastoring at 18.
Wow.
And so I've done this my entire life,
Yeah.
really, and I don't know exactly when the pulpit ministry and the community and policy um, started. I think it's always kind of just been together. Um, I'm trying to remember my very first church in Lancaster, South Carolina. I remember inviting the city council persons there. Remember just having a lot of activities with the community itself, because we needed members at that point, and we had to go out. So I think I've always sort of just merged the two, and some people have liked it, some people
Yeah.
haven't. So that's my story.
I think that's amazing because I see that a lot of times nowadays, sometimes you'll get, people in ministry or in leadership in the church that kind of shy away from it. But then you have some that really embolden in the advocacy work. And I appreciate it because you talk about what's like, I love when you sermon, right? And when you pastor, is that when on Sunday you give us the scripture, you talk about how you give us the historical context of back then of the scripture, which I appreciate. You give us a little Bible study, but also you bring it back to today's time and how it's relevant. And it was one sermon where I think we all kind of, God, what was the you do a lot of series.
Yeah.
But it was but it was it wasn't the relationship series, but it was the series before that where you were pretty much telling people, we have to pray for this administration. We have to pray for our president, as hard as that can be, right? And especially what's going on in today's time, we still have to be a church and be who and what God called us to be, which is connectors, which are people to go out and minister and show people that even though we're seeing a lot in today's culture and time, and even this administration, we don't know if God is in the room with them, but we have to be those that bring light in the actual true word of God. And so I appreciate it because one, it shines a light on the work that I do, but also it shines a light on that we need to also get our congregation and our community involved in what's happening around them. Because when we come to church, we're not just coming to church for one day. We have it's what's after Sunday, right? And so I really, really do appreciate you in a sense, bridging that gap and creating that that ministry, I would say. I would say, you know, many people see faith as like personal, but you've kind of shown a way that we can guide public service. So how do you see faith and values translating into action in the community and policy work? So like, if that makes sense, so how do you, I guess, yeah, how do you see like faith kind of intersecting with the policy work and just also for you to feel emboldened to even talk about it in the church?
So I really believe it's the upbringing I've had. My grandfather was a pastor. On one side of my family, my great uncle was a pastor on the other side, and both of them have always talked about the community, the issues that people are dealing with in their messages on Sunday. It was just a conversation that you could have had this in the barbershop on Saturday, and it continued all the way through to Sunday and Sunday evening or wherever you were, because that's where people are. And I think ministers have to speak to the issues that people have. So your faith is no good if it's only within the four walls of the church.
That's good.
You got to live your faith, and it's got to be a daily thing. So
Yeah.
you cannot help but to have this conversation both inside the church as well as in the community. And I'd also like to say that, you know, the example of Jesus himself is a social gospel.
Yeah.
I mean, you're dealing with every issue that the people have.
And that's what I was going to ask you, like what scriptures, like what's in the Bible, right, that reinforces this, right? What is the scripture where, you know, and I know you know, right? But I definitely want people to know, like, this is scripture, right? This is not something that is new. This is not something, I mean, I know you probably know more historical, biblical context, but like we have gone through a lot of political strifes throughout time, even back in the biblical times, right? And I'm just, you know, for those that are out there, like what scriptures or what are some things out there that kind of translate to what's happening and even the policy work and all that?
You could argue perhaps that it goes back even to Old Testament times, Moses up on the mountain with God, getting the what we call the Ten Commandments or the law, bringing them down to the people. That combines faith and policy itself. One of the scriptures that kind of governs me and I always think about is from the prophet Micah, where, you know, God says, you know, where the prophet says, you know, what does the Lord require of you but to love justice, to love mercy, and to do justly, and to walk humbly with God. So those are things that I think every person is responsible for doing. That's Old Testament, and you get a lot of that there, the justice of God. Of course, Dr. King always looked at the justice, the justice of God in the community itself. But even within the New Testament, it follows through that when you look at the miracles of Jesus, they are feeding the hungry, clothing the naked. He is speaking on behalf of those whose voices have been hushed. So you cannot separate the two.
Yeah.
They're always intertwined.
You know, I may shake some tables with this question because I've seen this. I've seen this, and I want to get your thoughts. So I have and let me know if I go a little too. We're gonna have a real conversation, okay? So cross my legs now. So we got some real conversation. So there's two things. One of them I've been seeing with this trend of white evangelical Christians and how they are, in my, not even opinion, they are perverting the word, which is not new, right? I mean, there was a slave Bible. A lot of people have been doing this for years, right? Using and perverting the Bible for their own personal and emotional gain, right? To manipulate. But we're seeing it now, I feel like, in a very blatant way with the churches worshiping President Trump. And I mean, have you seen those videos
Yes.
where, and I'm like, oh Lord, Jesus is coming soon because this is blasphemous. But and not even just in the churches, but I always tell people the loyalists to this man in particular is disgusting, because you're no longer, but these are Christian people. You're no longer following God, you're following man. Exactly. And the people that I've seen the interviews where they'll ask Trump supporters like, oh, can Trump say or do anything? And they said, no, this man could kill. They have asked them, and they've said this man can kill, he can rape, he can do all the things, and and I will still follow him. I will still vote for him. And I'm just like, it's no way. But the other part to that is your thoughts on, now you have these conservative white evangelical Christians who are calling Jesus a liberal. and they're like, well, and that's when people are like, well, y'all are deporting people and all this thing, but you're saying you're a Christian, but Jesus wouldn't do what you're doing, right? And they're like, oh, well, Jesus is liberal, and I don't know. And I'm like, we're missing the plot. Like, so I just want to get your like real thoughts, on just, or as real as you want to be on just that, because I can't wrap my brain around it, to be completely honest. I cannot. It bothers me. Like, I'd be ready to get a little unholy, a little unchristian. I'd be like, what?
A lot of people are like that.
Yes. Like, what are we doing?
Well, I think we're seeing, well, first of all, there's nothing new under the sun.
Right.
The Bible says that, and we see it. This was going on even before Christ.
Mm-hmm.
People will manipulate scripture, especially when you don't know a lot of scripture. Mm-hmm. You just kind of manipulate what you think you know and what you hear from others. A
lot of people are biblically illiterate.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly. And the illiteracy rates are skyrocketing now. What really bothers me is when you were talking, I remembered going to a church and seeing the altar in that church. And one Sunday it had a cross on it, like they normally do, mm-hmm. altar tables. But then a few weeks later, it had the American flag on it. They took the cross off and put the flag
on the altar,
which said a lot to me.
Yeah.
And yet it said a lot, but it also reflects who the people are. Mm-hmm. Whenever you replace the cross of Christ for the flag or nationalism, mm-hmm. we've turned down the dark road.
Yes.
And for particularly black folk in America, we have never put as much loyalty into a president mm-hmm. as we are seeing white America or evangelicals do right now.
Yes.
Because we've known this is just a person, always. Not even President Obama, who's a man of color himself. You never saw this kind of blank check, they can do no wrong kind of attitude.
This is new.
This is very much new. This is a re-election of a person who we thought we would never have to deal with again.
Right.
And just the things he says and the things he's allowed to do mm-hmm. Is just unheard of, unprecedented in these times.
And I agree with you completely. I think, when I got my degree in political science and studying, the trends, because, we study all that. Of course, American government, the basics, but you also do the research and you study the trends, right? And I think I also took a class of the personality disorders of the presidency. It's actually very interesting to actually break down the psyche. Wow. Yeah, to break down the psyche, or to understand like how people think and how does that impact leadership and how they lead. And when you were saying that, I'm thinking back. I was like, we never did that. Like as much of a following President Ronald Reagan had, as much as Richard Nixon, Kennedy, all of these presidents that we've had and that we've revered in American history. And even like I said, during the Obama era, a lot of black folks that rallied behind him, but it was still never this blank check, because you still had people, even people that support him, that were like, oh, he could have did this better. He could, there's still, but now that's what makes it so really astonishing but asinine to me is where we're just like, what are we doing? This is so nothing is new under the sun. I definitely agree, but we're also living in some very new times where it's new to us.
Yeah.
But
history's repeating itself.
It absolutely, and it just begs me to think God is coming.
Yeah,
Where's my camera? God is coming, because this is definitely something new, but not really. And so I really want to get your thoughts on that, because I'm just like, we're seeing a level of worship, like the idolatry is kind of it's
alarming.
It's alarming, and it's outwardly blasphemous, and they're okay with it. Like it makes me question people's like where we are with mental health nowadays.
Exactly.
And I really do question.
Yeah.
People are not well.
No.
And that's why I really am like that. We really need the church more than ever. And I don't want to get too far off, but I feel like we're also in times where we're seeing also a lot of false teachings too. And it just makes it difficult to be like, well, to discern. And I think a lot of people struggle with discerning what's a good church, that I'm not being led astray. And that's kind of like the battle, right? Where it's like, well, the advice I give you is like, well, ask God for discernment. But if you don't have that relationship, how do you know, right? If you don't have that relationship, or if you don't know, that's very difficult to acknowledge. That's why I always shout out to Shaw Temple Amy Zion, because honestly, like, just little plug, but literally Shaw Temple and this is what made me come back to the church. I just want to kind of like give my like little story a little bit. Of course, like I went to the church when I was younger and loved it, but it's different when you're younger, when you're kind of like,
when you get to make the decision yourself,
right? When you find God for yourself, you make the decision for yourself. As an adult, it's different, right? And so when I was in college, I moved to DC, was doing a stint in DC for like a year and some change, came back to Atlanta. This was around COVID. Well, I came back towards the end of 2020. So, things wasn't back to full normal yet. And so, when I like following years after that, I was kind of church hopping, or I think I was away from church so long that I was just kind of like, I got used to just not going to church. And so, when I was church hopping, and I was just like, this is just not for me. I'm a girl, like I told you earlier, I'm a girl from South Georgia, right? I grew up Baptist. So, in the country, that's
going to church.
I'm going to church, right? And so it's different. So I think I'm used to also a certain level of church. And I know we're seeing a lot of mega churches or small mega churches. And I was just like, this is just not for me personally. It's no right or wrong. It just doesn't appeal to me. And so when I came back to Shaw, and you were under, this church was under your leadership, and I saw the way that you preached, and I'm like, oh, this man is preaching, and not just, I'm being honest. Like, he didn't actually do this. Like, this is a real, genuine, and I know we've had little private conversations where I gave you kind of the flowers, but as a pastor, I really appreciate your pastoring and your discipleship, because I'm learning, right? I'm learning what's in the Bible. I'm seeing how it's relating back to what I'm going through in today's time, because that is also important. But I'm also getting some Bible study in my sermon as well. And because the biggest thing I always say is checking the fruit, right? Actually, right. I've been doing Bible study in the book of Matthew. And yes, I've been doing some like deep Bible study. Good. Yes. And so I've just finished up chapter 7. And towards the end of the chapter, but it's like talking about checking the fruit of your leadership. And I think it was the golden rule and the contrast. I was at that point. And so I think that's so important, because a lot of people don't check the fruit of the person and the leadership, and they follow man. That's right. And then they get hurt by man, right? But then they take man as this is God. Yeah. And so I'm just saying it to say, I don't want this to be too long, but I appreciate that when I'm being pastored by you, I can check the fruit of what you're saying, because you're preaching from the Bible. Mm-hmm. And I really, really appreciate that, because not everybody does that. So that was just like the minor little, but I genuinely mean that you are an amazing pastor. I appreciate your discipleship, and I think a lot more people need to be discipled by people like you that are, that are being guided by the fruit of the Spirit, that are actually preaching from the Word, right? Because the biggest thing is like everything sounds great.
Exactly.
But then if you can't go back and be like, well, that don't add.
Find it
I can't find it. That don't add up. 2 + 2 don't equal 4 right here. Then what are we talking about? And so, yeah, I just wanted to.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
You work hard trying to make sure. Now, I must admit, I appreciate myself first. So all those series on praying for the president, and leadership, I listen, I had to do that myself.
Yeah.
But for me, whatever you preach should not just be preaching, teaching, whatever you're up there in front of people, whatever you're saying, it should not just be good for this situation, this point in history, but if it's really doctrinal preaching, it's good wherever you plant it. So it'll be the same word 20 years from now or 20 years earlier.
Exactly.
It's the same teaching.
It's the same teaching, and it shouldn't change.
It shouldn't change.
So, no, I appreciate that. And like I said, I appreciate that in today's time because, like I said, we're seeing just a lot. Well, I'm saying, I can't speak for everybody else, but I think we're seeing a lot of false teachings, and a lot of people have a lot big following, but it's, and like I said, what's happening in the world, it's a lot that's happening. It's overwhelming, and a lot of people come to church looking overwhelmed, aside of what life is already happening, right? That's just like the layers, right? It's what's happening in the world and how this is impacting them. But also, I got, I don't know if my lights can stay on today, or, whatever people are going through, or relationship things, right? You just did a series on relationship, and I'm like, hey, some things I was like, all right, now you're saying too much. But I appreciate it. And I just think that when people come to church, they're looking for that, that guidance, or they're looking for, some type of relief from that pressure, that burdens that they're feeling. And so I just appreciate it because it's definitely necessary.
Thank you.
I want to switch gears a little bit and just kind of ask you, and maybe it's not switching gears, maybe it's still on topic, but I want to just get your thoughts on, I know I mentioned earlier that a lot of people will say that, bringing up, advocacy or policy, or even combining the two, right? I know we talk about the separation of church and state and all of that, but what are your thoughts, and why do you feel like, I don't say like go against that, but why do you feel like it's, I guess, necessary? But what are your thoughts on just the people arguing that you shouldn't bring that into the church? Because I'm pretty sure I don't know, I'm assuming that, I don't know if you've gotten any pushback from even at Shaw, where people might be like, I ain't trying to hear all that, So just what are your thoughts?
I've gotten it, and
Okay.
I'm used to it because I've gotten it for my entire ministry.
Okay.
And I've always, like I said before, I don't know how you can live out your faith and not talk about what's hurting your people, and not try to deal with it from a holistic point of view, but also from a biblical point of view. And that's what we try to do. So for me, I'm inviting Republican candidates as well as Democratic or Independent. I invite all of them. I want them to speak, and I want our congregation to hear and to see that this is a person that's offering themselves for office that's representing them, and this is what they're saying they're going to do. And I want us to be able to hold them accountable, no matter who they are, to doing just that. I think that's important in the community. Yeah. I think that's a part of building community. And I'll always ask members, if your church closed now, who would be affected? Anyone in your neighborhood, would they care or be affected? And if not, then are you truly the church? Are you truly the house of prayer? Are you truly a reflection of the work of Christ? So that I just think that there's no way you can not intersect your faith, your church, as well as policy, as well as politics.
Yeah,
you gotta do it all.
I that's good. That's real good. I think I'm glad that you mentioned the bipartisan factor there, because I think a lot of people now, we're in a time where people are very radical on each side, right?
Exactly.
And I'm just like, and I always have to educate people on the work that I do. I work with everybody. I literally have to.
Yes.
As a lobbyist, I have to work with everybody.
You do.
Whether I want to personally or not, because at the end of the day, when it comes to, and I also want to kind of,
you're like a pastor. You have to work with everybody.
You got to work with everybody, right? You know, at wherever they at. You got to serve everybody, and there's a level of putting your personal to the side, because serving it's not an I thing, right? When you serve, it's what other people, you got to meet other people where they are. And when it comes to, I always tell people, I'm in the work of policy, not politics. Politics is what you see in the media. Policy is the actual work and the legislation that's being passed and is being done. Now, yes, politics is in everything, so I have to deal with the drama. I call that my reality TV, to be honest. You know, that's my love in hip hop. You know, but I appreciate it, because we have to invite everybody to the table for us to actually have real conversations, for us to work together, because that's the thing. Republicans, Democrats, Independents, whoever, however you identify, we have to work together. And when you invite everybody, you're also showing the congregation, it's not necessarily just like your affiliation, but it's more or less like, no, this is how it's going to impact you. We may just have a Republican leader in a more maybe majority Democratic or black city or area for whatever reason, right? I don't say for a reason, it's more redistricting and gerrymandering, you know, and that's a whole another convert, which is happening right now in the state of Texas.
Yes.
Oh, that's bad.
Unbelievable.
But it shows that, you know, even if it's not within your community, our state legislature is majority Republican, right, led. Yeah. And so when it comes to the state of Georgia, you know, I know we flip-flop, but the governor, all of them. So we have to work with people that may not agree and believe in us, but it's not also the work of what Christ did, right? He worked with people, right? It's exactly what Christ did when he was on his walk and on his journey, you know. He worked with people that did not agree, that didn't even believe in him, still loved them, right? And that's the beauty of how we know Christ was God, is God, because we as men struggle with that. He didn't struggle, you know. He was like, I'm gonna still love you, and I think walking in the life of how Christ lived his life, you know, is always a challenge. I know for me particularly, because, you know, I always ask God, I'm like, Lord, just work on my heart, you know, give me the grace, but also, how can I serve your people today? How can I serve your children? How can I be a blessing to them? Maybe it's what I say. And sometimes I'll talk to people, spark a random conversation, they'll be like, you don't know how much that helped me. And I'm like, I didn't know.
Yeah, exactly.
You never know. And so, and I always say this to people. I said, you waking up could save somebody's life, because you are a walking testimony. How you live your life, whether you even open up your mouth, people see you, even if you don't think people are watching. And how people, and that's why, like, you know, I think it's always good to kind of give people their flowers, because, you know, how you live your life says a lot. And so that's why I always be like, I give people the love. I'm like, I appreciate you, because it's necessary, but I appreciate you saying that as well.
But I would also add, I don't tell folk when I'm inviting a politician.
Yeah,
I
you just do it.
Yeah,
I be thinking, I'm like,
may not come to church.
Right. No, I appreciate. Yeah, you gotta. In my work, there's a little slight manipulation. You know, you gotta, you know, kind of turn the dial a little bit. I appreciate that. I will also say, you know, because when you pastor, when you speak, and also just from, you know, getting to know you as well, in the kind of man that you are. I appreciate that you are not only just a black man, but you're a black man.
That's right.
You are for the community, and you speak on those issues. You speak on how, as what plagues the black community, and how we can just be better. And so, how do you navigate difficult, I would say, policy topics, especially when you are ministering like racial justice, poverty, education, that may not have a consensus with the church? I know you shake tables in your sermons sometimes, and I appreciate it, because you say the things that people need to hear and not want to hear. You don't give fluff. So I would just say, how do you navigate having those conversations, especially, like I said, with what is going on in today's time, because I think we can't shy away from what's happening. So how do you kind of navigate that?
I think for me, one of the greatest blessings for my life and my ministry is I've been able to pastor in several contexts. So the rural, I started out pastoring in the rural
Ooh,
in the South.
that's a difficult one too, I feel like.
Spent years in a highly urban city, New Haven, Connecticut, and now in Atlanta area, in the suburbs, Smyrna, Georgia, but having a congregation that has folks from Fulton County, Cobb County, I mean, just everywhere. And finding out that the same issues we struggle with here are issues that folk in Connecticut struggle with and people in South Carolina struggle with, in Charlotte, North Carolina, struggle with the same issues, education, poverty, all of these things. May see it a little differently, but they're the same issues. And being able to, for instance, in New Haven, we were able to start a charter school, and I caught so much flack from persons inside the church, members who really love their church, from teachers and public education. But I realized that community needed another option, that the traditional schools were overworked, overcrowded in many times, and just the community was underserved. So we started a school there that we could kind of tailor the expectations, tailor and choose teachers and all these things. And it's a long story, but even the superintendent of the schools was totally against it at first, but became our greatest cheerleader in the end, and put his name on the line to make sure that school was started, and it continues even today. And it really was the only school in that, probably even to this day, that had the support of the teachers' unions, had the support of the politicians, as well as won the community support because of how we shepherded the whole process, worked together, being honest, making sure that the kids and the community at the end of the day were serviced.
Yes.
So it should be in everything we do.
Yeah.
Whether it be what you do in making policy and everything, going to talk to senators and state representatives is like some of the scariest things you'll do, because I found it even the local politics were even more heart-wrenching and scary in times than the national. Going to talk to the U.S. senators and things, because they know them and they're local. And when they say they can't support something because of this, they really meant they meant that. Yeah. But then finding common ground, finding ways that you can move the needle closer. You won't get everything you want this time, but can we get closer to it? And at the end of the day, those are great successes. Yeah. And you have to, and being able to then tell your congregation that, inviting them to tell them, so that people can see that you're working together.
You know, I love your strategy, and I mean, granted, lobbyists, that's like also our thing is strategy, right? To strategize. And I love that your strategy is to be transparent and honest. Yeah. And I know there's a perception with faith leaders who, you know, and even politicians, policy lobbyists who are not honest or not as transparent or forthcoming. And so, you know, there's this idea that there's some scheming, you know, and I appreciate that. First off, amazing that you started a whole charter school in, you know, your community in New Haven. That's absolutely amazing. And talking through how you got pushback and nobody really was that supportive, but, you know, there was a need in that community for this. And so, you know, being honest and shepherding it the way that you shepherd it is what allowed people to bring that wall down of like, oh, this is maybe someone I can trust, or maybe it's something I can get behind. And so that's the beauty of when you do get pushback, especially like I said, in I would say both of our careers, when you get pushback from people that may not see where you're coming from or may not get it or understand, there's ways you have to kind of go about to, at least it may not be the full success of like, you know, you bringing them over to your side and winning them over completely, but there is the small wins that you have to take in of like, we were able to work together on something, or I was able to inform you on something that maybe you weren't fully aware of, but also have those conversations with your local elected officials and saying, hey, I can't really agree or vote on this because of this thing or that thing, which is a real issue. But I hear you and I support you, having those behind the door conversations, which it's like, okay, well, I didn't get the vote on this, but it's the small, it's like, gotta kind of keep chipping away at it, right? Until you get to the gold mine. And so I really appreciate the transparency and the honesty approach that you take that most people, for whatever reason, don't. Because I think there's a fear behind, if I'm honest and transparent, I may get the rejection, right? So the goal is like, I want to get to what I want, but at what cost though? Right. And I see a lot of faith leaders and people that are in politics who do that approach. And it's cliche, but what comes to the light, what happens in the dark always comes to the light.
That's right.
And so I think it's always the question of at what cost. And I think growing up, God rest her soul, my aunt, she would always tell me to never lose myself in the work that I'm doing in my career, right? Because I'm in a career it's easy, right? You can easily lose yourself. And also, I'm pretty sure you are familiar, you're in a career as well where people can easily lose themselves because there's a level of,
all the time.
Right, authority, power. There's, you're leading something, right? So then when you forget who is giving you that, you think that's you doing it, right?
That's right.
And so I think it's just one of those things where it's like, man, I appreciate it because it's not common as I think I personally would like for it to be, but who am I?
Well, one of the things that I always try to keep in mind is for me, and I've thought of what else I would do in life or what else, other careers I could take, but for me, I was taught that the black minister is the freest voice in the community. So I've tried to remain in that. I've never had to ask a mayor or a governor or anyone for a job because I've remained in the church. And on Sunday morning, I can get up and say what needs to be said to my congregation, but also walk in their offices, representative offices, and say what needs to be said and not worry about, well, they're going to fire me. No, I'm going to speak truth to power and try to work together and bring these factions together between the one side and the other.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I want to. Why do you feel like the black church, and specifically, is the freest voice compared to? I know you've experienced other types of congregations and ministries and churches and stuff. So I just want to expound on that. What do you mean a little bit by that for those that may not understand that?
Well, it goes into, I think, a lot of liberation theology.
Okay, I don't want to get you in trouble.
Well, it is.
Yeah.
But when you talk about the God of the oppressed, growing up in a tradition where you really believe that God is on your side, God is on the side of those who are done wrong, and you feel it, and you start to see it in your own experience. So that for me, the black preacher is in fact that freest voice because you've had everything try to tear you down. From systems, from your own people to other people, they've tried to tear you down, and yet you still rise and you're able to speak the truth and be authentic in who you are and your faith. You're the freest voice,
I'm glad you said all of that because I wish a lot more people in our community, in the black community, understood that. I think, I had my launch event not too long ago to kind of launch everything of my brand and business. And I was telling people, it just came to me, but I was telling people how this is not the time to shrink ourselves, right? This is where we need to be more emboldened and of course, strategic, but also wear it out there, empowered to say, this is what I'm doing. I am your favorite black lobbyist, and not feeling shame or not feeling like, oh, I can't say that because it's not, encompassing or it's not kumbaya or, but I said, I think we need to be more empowered and open up our voices to do that. Cause I think a lot of people feel like, oh, well, what's happening in the administration or what's happening in the world, especially because they're not shying away from it either. right? So why do we need to lower ourselves, to get stuff done or to be who we are? And I think I really think that's like the Black story, even though I know as Black people, we're not a monolith, but the fact that we're not new to struggle.
That's right.
Right? Whether it is personal struggle or it is systemic struggle, we are not we're not immune from it. We don't have the luxury. Yeah. As much as
never have had.
We would love to take a break.
Yes.
we need the break, and that's why I think now when people were talking about, where is the people? Where are the churches with the master? And I'm like,
we're here.
Yeah. We're here.
Haven't gone anywhere.
We haven't gone anywhere. I think we're recognizing this isn't our fight. Mm-hmm. Well, also too, our fight is not too far behind y'all. So we gonna enjoy wear them fans. We gonna do our boots on the ground. We're gonna experience Black joy. Yeah. And I think the thing is like, we're not taking a break. We just know how to experience it's strategy. Yeah. We know how to do it in the midst of, right? The same way, with scripture, things are in the midst of, right? God is with you in the midst of the storm. He never left. I was just telling my mom on the way here, giving her encouraging word. I'm just like, whatever you're going through, like, God is still with you. Because and we need that reminder, right? Where, we are going through things and we may feel like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know what's going on. This is how it's going to impact me, how I'm going to feed my family. I know in Georgia, the food stamps ain't coming. Like, literally, they got cyber hacked. Yes. And so there's a lot of, and that's also impacting our elderly community, with Social Security, all the different things. And so I always encourage people, whatever you're going through, God has never left you. He's in the thick of it with you, which is the beautiful part and the intentional part of God, because I think we feel like, I'm doing this by myself, but you're not. Even if you feel like you're alone in this world, it doesn't mean that God has left you. Even when we're tempted by our sin, He's still with you. He's still with you. And I know, like I said, I've had some struggles with that in my faith walk, but remembering that, like, God will remind me, I'm like, oh God, and I'll just start crying because I'm just like, oh, you never left me. And I'm like, dang, this is nice.
Get those reminders.
We get those, and sometimes, you too real. I was like, wait, hold on. Like, stop revealing yourself too much. Relax. But I think that's so important to note that a lot of people are seeing Black people like, oh, y'all don't care. That's just not our fight.
That's right.
And we're now recognizing to know what it is. I think people are so used to Black people being on the front lines of everybody.
Showing up for everybody, yeah.
Exactly. To our own detriment. Mm-hmm. And I love that we as a community have that much of a beautiful soul and spirit that we do that. But I think now we were kind of like, well, first off, we didn't told y'all. Yeah. So we tried to tell y'all. But now it's like, we're gonna enjoy it in the midst of. And I think that's what's kind of protecting our peace a little bit, even what's happening in DC. I mean, I don't know if you heard, but like DC apparently is under siege, with there's the National Guard
taking it over.
Yes. And I mean, I frequent DC a lot for my work. And I mean, outside of that, I have family in DC. I love the city. It's a good time. Yeah. And now, I typically, go to a conference and every September. It's called CBC, which stands for Congressional Black Caucus Foundation Legislative Conference. And so we all, me and my professional friends are like, well, what's that going to look like? Because, I just seen videos where like the city's gated off and it's like and this is where the monuments, the open, beautiful space. And we're just like, how's that going to look? And so I think.
Well, they're replacing the grass,
What?
He's replacing all the grass.
With what? Concrete?
Like you did the garden, I don't know.
You know what? See, I was like, don't even get me started, because then that's gonna be a whole nother 30 minutes. We're gonna be here, right, talking about it. I'm a yapper, so, and when I get into those conversations, I feel like, what's he doing? Anyway, I'll leave that man alone, child. How can faith communities better prepare the next generation to understand their responsibility in civic engagement and advocacy? I know me and you've kind of like had some personal conversations about just, how to engage the community, especially in Smyrna, and how to bring people into the church and how to bring the church to people. Yeah. Right. But I know as we are building up this next generation, even I'm building up the next generation, my brother's generation, generation after that. How do we kind of involve them? Because this is not only just impacting us, but impacting them, right? Like my brother, he just went off to college. He's going to Georgia Southern, and it ain't UGA, so it's fine. But he, I was just telling him how, you know, college is going to look probably a little different than when I was in. And we're 10 years apart.
Yeah.
And so, but also, how does that impact, you know, grants and for students to go to school? So, you know, I just want to get your thoughts on how do you know, what are your thoughts on just bridging that gap and bringing in the next generation?
Yeah. So I think a couple of things with this is, I think what we're seeing is could be described as a changing of the guards.
Okay.
Within politics, within religion, you know, it seems like every week one of the stalwart leaders is passing on, going on. So we're seeing this generation that has been so strong and so out there, so forceful for so many years, they're being silenced. Even though they're still here, like a Jesse Jackson, very much alive here, but his voice isn't as strong.
Exactly.
It is heard as much now. And some will argue that perhaps some of these leaders have stayed longer and held positions longer than they should have. They should have let a younger generation take over these positions. That argument may be mute right now because they're having to change the guards. Time has a way of taking one generation out and putting another one in.
Exactly.
What should happen is that we invite generations to come alongside us and to help do this work, so that when I get tired, they're right there. They don't have to learn how to do it. They've been doing it all along.
Exactly.
And hopefully, not only is that happening in politics, we're seeing it in the world, but it's also happening in the church.
Yes.
Where you've got, I am as a pastor intentionally bringing generations together, bringing them at the table, having conversations, putting people in position so that when one person who's been doing this for 30 years says, listen, Pastor, I can't do this anymore, there's somebody who's been walking with you for the last 5 years who says, I know how to take it on. I can take this on.
Yes.
And it creates the conversation that's intergenerational. And one generation says, this is how we've been doing it. Another generation says, well, let me add this to it because I can make it easier and we can get an even greater impact, make even greater impact, and get even greater results. One of the other things is we're going to have to go back to the old landmarks. So our HBCUs and our people in our community have got to give to make sure that those doors stay open.
Exactly.
That's going to be the pathway for education for our people.
Oh, absolutely.
These grants are being cut out.
Yeah.
Scholarships, these little scholarships we have at these churches, these scholarship committees, they're so important now.
Yeah.
Your $20, your $10 adds up.
But that's how it was back in the day.
That's right.
That's how some of my people in my family went to school.
Yeah.
It's because their local community, their church, rallied behind them and sent them off to school.
You stay in school.
You going to school.
Need? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And we got to do that now.
Yes, we do. We got to get back to that level of community that I think we lost a little bit along the way. But I'm so glad you said that about, you know, with the next generation and bringing people on, especially in my space, but also in your space, how important it is. Because I know that's been a big argument with my generation of like, let it go.
Yeah.
But a lot of them feel like they can't let it go for whatever the reasoning is. But they're in that position, and like you said, time is going to do it for you whether you want to or not. You know, so even if you think you got it in you, time comes. Everybody has their end. And the sad part is we're seeing people's time, and there's nobody bringing nothing up. So now we're either losing that seed or we're losing, you know, that sense of, you know, discipleship. And now it's like, okay, well, now we're scrambling.
Yeah.
And then we're putting people that are not as prepared into something to fill shoes that they may at the time can't fully fill because they didn't have the time and they weren't following them along like they should have. And I think that is so good that you said you're intentional about it. And I think I wish a lot more people was intentional about bringing up the next generation. And that's something that I do, especially with my business that I said I'm going to do about community engagement, going back to talk to high school students, going back to talk to college students or people that are, young adults that you get into this world. Nobody tells you about life. No one tells you how to do things. Right? There's no life for dummies. I wish it was. Yeah. I wish there was a book where we could sit there and just be like, all right, now go to chapter 5. Okay, we don't have that, right? We are the people that needs to minister and to pass that wisdom down. I always call it liquid gold. It's what you know.
Yes.
You can't get that nowhere else, because once it's only up here, it's gone. That's right. And so when we're having amazing thought leaders who are now towards the end of their lives, it's probably a better way to say that, but they're at the end of it. And
they always say it like this: I got more years behind me than I got in front of me. And it's true.
And that is true.
Very much true.
And I think that's the biggest thing of, there are a lot of people that are there at that point of their life, and like I said, their voices are not strong. They're still here, but their voices aren't strong, when we lost a lot of prominent leaders, within the ministry, outside of the ministry, yes. We're just like, and now we feel like there's a void.
There's just so many of them.
Everybody, I went to the funeral, and I'm just like, and it was so like everybody mourned, but we're just like, who's next?
Exactly.
And that was the scary part of like, the man almost died. Who have we prepared? Yeah. And we, in my network, we literally was like, nobody. Like we all, like the Black lobbyists and politicians all came together and was like, scrambling, like who, who could, take so we don't lose the seat.
Exactly.
That's the biggest thing, because representation and all that matters. It matters. And it matters outside of just like, what that person, like, I can be that, but it's like, no, like you need to hold on to that, because as we see, like we mentioned earlier, the state of Texas is intentionally redistricting and gerrymandering people out of seats because they have their own agenda. And it's getting to a point where people don't realize, okay, well, that's just Texas. Yeah, but that snowballs. It
will be Georgia.
It will be Georgia.
Don't sleep on it.
Do not sleep on it. It will be Georgia. It will be California. It will not California. It will be North Carolina, South Carolina. It would be, you're going to see the whole Southeast.
South Carolina, of course.
Absolutely. And that is where we're like, oh, we need to be more strategic about how we are pouring back into our communities, how we are lifting up this next generation, how we are giving back to our institutions that we created for us.
That's right.
Because it's going to be a situation to where people can't get into a UGA or a PWI, right, anymore, because either it's due to affordability, because now we no longer have the Pell Grants, now we no longer have, the Hope Scholarship. God forbid he takes that away, because a lot of students are profiting off of that for Georgia. Yeah. So now we have to, like I said, give back to Morehouse, Clark Atlanta, Spelman, Livingstone College, right? All of these colleges that is for us, created by us, because we literally were in the reason it's here is because we were in these situations where we couldn't go anywhere.
That's right.
So now we are, like I said, history repeats itself. Yeah. And it looks like this president is taking us back to his time of where America was great for him.
It was great for him.
It was great for him. Yeah. It wasn't great for everybody else. No. And so I really, really appreciate, you saying that, because I felt so passionate. That's why I'm like, because that is a real thing.
And I think Black ministers need to support persons like yourself, lobbying persons who are willing to offer themselves for political offices, because it's a part of the strategy.
Yes.
We cannot be so moved with emotionalism that we're only able to speak.
Yes.
We got to have somebody in the room.
Yes.
Somebody who's coming up with these policies, and somebody's thinking about the long game.
Exactly.
How is this policy going to live out and affect my children's children?
Yes, exactly.
And to a greater extent, we haven't done that. And we've got to start doing it.
We got to get back to strategy. Yeah. We got to get back to community. We have to get back to how I always look at when I got into my career, when I was in school, I wrote a research paper because I've always looked at the different policy initiatives, or just things that everything's connected like a spider web. Nothing, education is connected to, as we of course know, mass incarceration, prison to preschool pipeline,
Complex, yeah.
every housing, homelessness, everything
All of
is
it's
connected.
Yeah.
And one can't operate without the other. And we're seeing that when President Trump dismantled systems within the span of a couple of weeks. We saw and we saw that how that negatively impacted not only just jobs but also our economy.
Yes.
Right? Just like that. It is all connected. And so you can't dismantle one system without replacing it with another. And that takes time. That takes years. We're still living off of the policy and legislation from god dang Nixon, Reagan, and Clinton's time. Bush time. Like
Summer Johnson.
Yes. Literally. A lot of stuff that is ingrained into our American ideologies and fold policy-wise is due to things that those systems were in place.
Reaganomics. You're right. All of that.
All of that, right? So, I'm very, I just get really passionate about how important that is, that we have to be intentional about that, especially in the Black community, because the reality I think that a lot of us are now seeing as a community is that no one is going to do it but us.
That's right.
We have to stop expecting the government to do it. We have to stop expecting, we have to come together, ministry, the churches, the community, like I said, people in advocacy work, all of that, teachers, educate, everybody needs to come together and see how can we push us forward. Because you see other people are doing it themselves. Why are we not doing that? I'm just going to have one last question, and I'm going to get you up out of here.
This has been great.
I was like, this has been some great conversation. I'm so happy that you decided to do this, because I wanted to capture your voice. I think it's super important because I do pride myself on being a woman of God or woman of faith, and how that is a big foundation of just who I am. And so when I speak, God gonna come out.
That's right.
Whether I and I always, that's why I made it intentional of like, I want to make sure we're having those conversations, because that's real life. A lot of us are believers. A lot of us are living this life, right? We're in this world, and we're in this world, not of this world.
That's right.
And we're also believers, and it's sometimes we struggle with culture and faith on how to navigate that. And that's a real thing.
It's difficult, yes.
Yeah, I struggle with it.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to bring these conversations to the forefront because, it's important. And I think it's real. It's not one thing or the other. We're complex people. We have complex lives, and a lot of different things impact us. And, I just wanted to bring that to the light. So I really appreciate you for coming on. Last thing I would say, if you could leave people with one takeaway, or if there's even a prayer or hope that you have for the future about bridging faith and policy, what would it be? That's with anything.
Wow, there's so many things.
I know. If you had a couple, that's fine.
I think people need to be honest about where our community is, and true to your voice. And live out your faith. I think one of Christ's real last prayers, I know we kind of harp on the Lord's Prayer, the model prayer, as being the prayer of Jesus, but toward the end, his prayer was, Father, make them one, that they might be one. And this model of, or this project of American democracy, it has its flaws, but it has some good things. But we need to be one people, and if we really live out the core values of our faith, we will become one. And it's accepting the good and the bad in all of us, that we might be one, and that we might be the greatest nation on earth, as we claim to be, but oftentimes do not live up to that. But I would hope that, I guess the good angels in us would lead us to being one.
Yeah. I think that's so good, to be able to come together. And I think what is so interesting, that is the hardest part, that we struggle with, whether it's within your different people's communities, or it's as a nation, right, as a whole. And I think we we look for the Bible and we look for God to be like, well, this should be the one connector, right? It should be that connects all of us, no matter our ideologies, no matter what we believe in or whatever, no matter what we took from and of this world, no matter our experiences, that the biggest connector, the greatest connector is God. And I just really wish, and I like I said, I hope, maybe not wish, but I hope that we as a people really can take that in. And I know it's hard because, you know, the way our brain works, we look at people and we judge. Right? That's just naturally as the human brain thinks, right? We put things in boxes, right? Because that's how we are able to see this is a pillow, this is a cup, and, you know, that's what that is. And so sometimes it does take God for us, or God coming into us to say, let's get out of, I got to get out of that. And still, and we touched on that earlier about connecting with people that don't look like us, that don't agree with us, that don't believe in us, and may even tell us the things that we don't want to hear, right? But still leading with love and grace and light and kindness and forgiveness.
Yes.
Ooh, that's the biggest
Very
one.
much.
Yeah. Maybe that was the series on forgiveness.
All,
I was like, yeah. And so I really, really appreciate you for saying that. Again, I really appreciate you for coming on. I think this conversation has been extremely, I don't want to just be basic and say great, but this has helped not only just me, but hopefully it helped those that are listening, that, you know, it takes all of us to get to the goal that we're trying to get to. And, you know, we can't do this by ourselves. You're not doing it by yourself. You have your community, you have your people in your community, but you also have God. God is always with you. And I really want to emphasize that, because in this times where we feel alone, where we're feeling like this is just overwhelming or it's too much, you're never doing it by yourself. And the beauty of it, if we have more conversations like this, you realize you're not doing it by yourself. You're living a very similar or shared experience.
Exactly.
And so, no, I really appreciate you, Pastor, for coming on. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Is there anything else that you wanted to say for the listeners, or shout outs or anything like that?
Just to you.
Okay.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes.
I had no idea you were even doing this.
Yes.
But you are doing big things.
Thank you so much.
Keep doing it. Keep
Thank
doing
you.
it. Thank you all for having me.
Thank you so much. Well, thank y'all so much for joining this episode. I hope it blessed you the way that it blessed me. Please leave a comment, like, subscribe, follow, and also put down any questions or concerns that you had from this episode. What are some things that you struggle with? What are some ways that you can bridge your faith and the community and advocacy together? I hope to hear from you soon. I love you. Thank you. Talk to you soon. Bye.